All right. Hello, my name is Alex. I'm a test player of Vertical Shift, and today with me I have.
Hello. I'm Ben. I'm a producer on Vertical Shift.
My name is Sean Fieser, and I'm a producer on Vertical Shift.
So you guys have really built an amazing world, and I think what's on everybody's mind right now is, what is this? What is Vertical Shift?
I'll give that to you, Sean.
So Vertical Shift is a competitive player virtual reality game. Basically, we grant the player the ability to swing and fly around, grapple hooks and jetpacks in a very dystopian. And we've constructed several game modes, kind of built around this cops and robbers scenario, where people will be able to chase each other around, from each other, and race each other and things like that. So it's a very competitive game that gives a lot of room for people to get creative with how they make use of the given them, and really kind of work hard to compete against each other and prove who's the most agile.
So what I really want to know is, what is everyone's role on the team? How is this executed so well? And who was behind it?
Well, we started with originally back when this whole kind of thing first started. It was just Sean and I, just the two of us. What we had is Sean was developing the primary mechanic, your grapple and thrusters and kind of stuff like that. Just kind of prototyping. He was doing that, and I was kind of. We had like a basic like cubes, like your Unity cubes, just stacked up, and we were trying to see if we could fly from them. And then eventually, I think he threw those over to me, and that came over, and I started putting it on the VR headset. But eventually, the project got too big, or it started to get so big, and we started wanting to move it a lot faster, that we brought on 3 people more, making the team total of 5. And we split our roles between level design and kind of graphic stuff over here. So like all the particles and effects and stuff and sound and those things would kind of fly through me. The mechanics and all of the game mode like managers would go through Sean. And we have a QA developer, Connor, and he would kind of double check me and Sean and kind of make sure everything's working right, or if he thought something was wrong, he'd kind of throw it back at us and say, hey, can you check this over again? And then we realized we also needed a UI artist or developer. That's mainly because UI kind of takes on its whole world in VR, being all 3D and interactive the way it is. So we brought on our friend Jacob as well to do all of our kind of UI work. And then lastly, one of the craziest roles, or at least from my perspective, is our kind of back-end matchmaking guy, who works a lot with Sean. His name is Noah, and he does a lot of the background networking, the lobbies merging. Essentially, it's what allows you to get in games and queue with people and stuff like that. And so we've kind of taken those 5 main roles and just kind of divided them amongst ourselves, and kind of either gone through Sean or I to integrate themselves, and kind of bring it all together into one. But that's kind of how we've decided to tackle things.
I think one thing that is really important is the inspiration behind it. What made you guys want to create this world? What made you guys want to immerse others into this world? And why is that important to you?
So I can say that personally, the methods of moving that we offer, swinging and flying around, have been 2 mechanics that I've always been very fond of in games, but I felt there was no way to really get that full feeling of like I'm swinging through the city just through like a 2D TV screen. So when I first really got into VR, the big thing that I felt like me and a lot of people would really like is that ability to feel almost like a superhero swinging through a dense urban environment, and it really feels like you're swinging. It's not just like an additional method of flying, right? There's no fanfare. You are swinging. That arc is there, and you can feel it. And that's really what's inspired me to kind of push this project and make sure that everyone else who shares those passions gets the ability to experience what I get to.
Awesome. All right, so what impact do you see Vertical Shift have on competitive gaming?
All right, so for the competitive gaming itself, for VR, for esports in general, right? There are several games. There's hundreds of esports competitive games out there. all being on the PC. You get your 10 computers or so up on your, up on the stage, and people compete and compete for money and all that stuff, right? And that's been growing rapidly in the past few years. Lots of people are, getting more contracts, and just it's getting bigger, more popularity. It's starting to be live streamed on more like traditional kind of media outlets and new, stations and stuff like that. However, when you take it into a VR perspective, I think there's only about maybe between 4 to 10 esports for VR. I personally know of only about 5 or 6 of them. And being so, I feel like if we can continue developing this game on the path that we are, with the competitiveness involved, if we can move it in this way, we can be one of those kind of early adopters of VR esports before maybe it gains more popularity. With things like the Quest coming out, allowing for more people to get their hands on VR headsets themselves. So if executed properly, I feel like we are at like the cusp of being able to kind of put this game on the market right when VR esports becomes accessible and bigger.
So I'd like to ask each of you, what is your favorite game mode and why?
All right. Well, that's a very tough one, considering how heavy we were both in the development process of all of the game modes. I gotta say, I'm gonna rate mine based off competitiveness. And as far as competitiveness and what makes me lean towards a certain game mode, I'd have to go with tag. Tag is just really fun. We've gotten like 12 people in, and you're just sprinting around. People are coming everywhere, flying by you. People are chasing you, and you're trying to get away from them. But at the same time, you're trying to get away or get them at the same time. And you're trying to be the last one standing, but also try and get your teammates untagged. And it's just so many different variables, but it's also so like simplistic. Don't get tagged, tag other people. And it's just so fast-paced, and it's just really exciting to play. And I could see it being really exciting to watch, too. So I'd have to lean towards that one.
Awesome.
Yeah, freeze tag is definitely a lot of fun. It's very hectic and kind of fast-paced. But I must say that my favorite game mode is probably Capture the Flag. Just because there's a lot more structure to that game mode, and the challenge kind of evolves as you progress through each game. Just because, when you have to pretty much sneak into this space and capture something, get out, now there's this additional strategy, like what's the best way that we can come in? How should we divide up our team to kind of draw the other guys away? And so you still have all the physical challenge that tag offers. Now you also have this like tactical aspect added to it as well.
So I think something really impressive about this game is the fact that you do not really feel motion sickness, though you're flying around and you're doing all of these crazy movements, and it feels relatively smooth. How are you guys actually handling that and tackling that? Because that is really impressive.
So one of the things, and we've done some research on in the past with some testers, is there's kind of 2 things that I try and focus on when designing maps for that, because I feel like the map design and the colors and all that stuff kind of plays one of the biggest roles. They're kind of split into 2 things. So one of the biggest things is the spatial awareness of objects. If you can see behind us, there's kind of a big city kind of sitting behind us, and there's a lot of space in between them. So for some maps and stuff like that, there is the big spaces cause the relative motion to be kind of the buildings don't move as fast to you because they're further away. And so one of those things, it just kind of lets you feel like you're more anchored even though you are flying fast. And with that as well, you can still move objects closer together in the levels, right? So you do have those periodic bursts of, wow, I am moving really, really fast. Another thing that I like to do is the color palette. We did a study, or very small research, and we found that the brighter colors, if more than like 30% or 20% or something like that of your screen was a certain bright color, it could actually trigger like headaches and more motion sickness and stuff like that, and nausea. So what we tried to do is avoid really bright colors for at least 20% of the screens. So like these buildings are, they're black with some highlighted purples and pinks, and those aren't too super bright. They're not neon. They're maybe a little bit neon, but they're not like crazy. And just kind of keeping that like 80-20 rule with that as well. It just kind of helps the chances of motion sickness to go down from what we've attempted so far.
One big thing is, I think really one of the biggest causes of motion sickness is boredom. I mean, when people aren't really enjoying what they're doing in VR, when they're just playing like a tech demo, they're going to be a lot more conscious about like this heavy thing on their head, how uncomfortable the straps are, and they just like, they just want to take it off. But when people play our game, time flies. You're just so into it that you don't really get the chance to even stop and think about that.
So what platforms is the game going to be available on?
All right, so Vertical Shift is going to be available on all of your PC headsets. So that's going to be your Index, your Oculus Rift S, and the Vive, and Vive Pro and stuff like that. But it's also going to be available on the Oculus Quest, which is the headset that is all self-powered and has the computer on itself, which we are very excited about. It's not going to be available on PSVR or any other headsets other than that list, I believe.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for your time, and just want to let you guys know, keep it up. And this is an amazing project, and I can't wait to try out some of these more amazing mechanics.
All right. Peace.